I'm Jackie Field, Senior Style and Beauty Editor at People and Events Co-Chair for Women at Meredith. Welcome to our pre-Mother's Day event, Flower Arranging. Just in time for Mother's Day, how to make your corner store or grocery store flowers look sleek, chic, and expensive. Before we begin, a little housekeeping. This interview is being recorded and will be available for on-demand viewing on the Meredith intranet. Please sign up for Women at Meredith newsletter and our social media accounts on Twitter, Instagram, and LinkedIn, as well as our Slack channel for post-event discussions. You can find all of the info in the invitation for this event. And now I'd like to introduce you to today's special guest, Ashley Greer of Atelier Ashley Flowers. Hi, Ashley. How are you?
Hi, I'm great. Thank you so much for having me. I can't wait to design for you.
I cannot wait for this live demo. Just a little background on Ashley. Atelier Ashley Flowers is a destination events and floral delivery studio. She is based in the Washington, D.C. area. In addition to her regular clients, which include brides, hotels, and more esteemed clientele, she also has worked with everyone from White House to, I don't know, what was it, Ashley? Someone for...
Real Housewives of Potomac.
Housewives. I love a Housewives moment. You are also a frequent guest on several news programs, sharing your expertise for all the world to see. We're so happy to have a half an hour of your time today ahead of Mother's Day. I know you're super busy.
We are, but I'm excited to share this with you, especially because we're sold out. So, and a lot of other shops may be too. So you may find yourself needing to make your own bouquets.
Oh, that's a really good tip. So at this point, it's really too late to go running into a flower shop and begging for a custom bouquet.
If you have a relationship, they may take pity on you, but if they don't know you, you're out of luck.
That is excellent to know. That's the first tip I need to jot down. Basically, I'm too late, Mom. Sorry, you might be getting something else. Okay. So Ashley, I know we only have about a half an hour with you. We want to do an amazing demo, but can you start by telling me what are some of the most common flower types that you'll find in the grocery store in May?
So in May, you're going to have your year-round flowers as well as your local seasonal flowers. So you're going to find your hydrangea, your roses, orchids, things like that. But then special to May, you're going to find some peonies, some late blooming ranunculus, and some lilacs if you're really lucky.
Ooh, I love lilacs. Those are my absolute favorite.
Yeah, they have such a beautiful smell and something that's so sentimental. So it's a very popular one for Mother's Day.
Awesome. I saw you in Trader Joe's earlier this week on Instagram. You have to tell us, what are some of your favorite grocery stores to pick up flowers at?
Okay, so my favorite is Trader Joe's, but that's just because people shop there, buy flowers, which means there's a really quick turnover, which means the flowers are really fresh. They also do a really good job on trying to source locally. So you have, for me, Virginia farms bringing in ranunculus or lilacs or things like that. So Trader Joe's, but there's also Whole Foods, there's Giant, Safeway, really anything. And the best thing you can do is to start creating a relationship with the flower purchaser there, and they will bring in whatever you want.
Oh, that's awesome. I had no idea. Okay.
Everything is all about the relationships.
Yes, form a relationship so that you can make special requests. I love it.
Yeah.
So before we dive into your demo, can you share what types of flowers you'll be working with today?
Okay, yes. So I got really lucky. I went to Trader Joe's on Monday. I have a cooler, so I was able to put them in the cooler to keep them fresh for the demonstration. But I picked up some ranunculus, which are my favorite. They had these beautiful clematis plants, which I actually love to pick up plants because then after you cut them, you can plant them in your garden or on your fire escape or wherever you have them.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's really great. It's like double duty, and sometimes they'll rebloom for you, so you get to make another arrangement. So I got some beautiful local peonies, and then I have my big bucket of flowers, because I love flowers, where I got my hydrangea, roses, some little carnations, because they were the right color, some blue plurum, Veronica, and Hypericum for texture. So I got a lot.
They're so beautiful. Did you say one of them was called Veronica?
Yep, this one is Veronica. It's also known as gooseneck because it has the shape of a goose's neck.
Sure. That's wild.
Yeah, it's really fun to get to know all the flower nicknames.
Absolutely. Do you prefer, I mean, and I can sort of see the answer, but do you prefer mixed bouquets when you're buying a bunch of flowers to put together, or do you buy singular bouquets that you can break apart?
So I tend to buy singular bouquets because for me it's really about the color. And I find when you go for a mixed bouquet, they've got yellow, orange, purple, pink. And while that's pretty, it's really hard to mix those colors in a way that looks elevated and high end.
Sure, that makes perfect sense.
But if you like that, then that's good. Like whatever, flowers are about making you and the recipient happy. So if that's your thing, go for it.
Gotcha. No, I love that. I mean, it also seems like quantity is important. I know that you are giving us an amazing demo, but it seems like you want to have at least 2 or 3 bouquets of different types of things in order to make something that would impress mom.
Yeah, so I probably have 7 to 10, but I always say I think you only really need 3. If you went with hydrangea, roses, and then one other specialty, it could be the peony, it could be the ranunculus. Those combined with a little bit of greenery is going to give you a really beautiful look.
Awesome. Awesome. So before you get started, tell us what kinds of supplies we want to keep on hand for this bouquet.
Okay, so most people are going to have some kind of twine and some kind of scissors. If that's all you had, that would be enough. For me, in my kind of toolkit, I always need this floral tape because you can tape across any shape of your vase and it's going to help keep it secure. Plus, I'm sending things out the door for delivery, so they really need to stay in place. And the other thing that I have that I can't live without are my kind of garden shears that will cut through big bunches and branches, and my floral knife, which is a Victorinox floral knife. So these are really what I use for almost every single design.
Oh, those are great. The floral tape I've definitely seen before. I mean, all the beautiful bouquets that you get, they're arranged perfectly because of that tape. So that's going to be so fun to watch you use that.
And it's great because it's the most eco-friendly supply you can use. There's Oasis, but that doesn't really break down. And there's chicken wire, but who really keeps chicken wire on hand? So, I mean, and this just fits in a drawer and you can make anything with it.
Amazing. I love that. Okay, Ashley, I'm going to let you get started.
Okay, all right. So I have my vase, and I think it's really important to always bring your flowers in a vase because you don't want anybody to have to mess around with arranging them once you get there. I mean, if we were in Europe and it was the culture, that's one thing, but we're busy and we just want to put it down and be able to go on with our cocktails and enjoy. So I'm going to start with my vase, which is full of water. I have seen demos where people design and there's no water in the vase. That's really difficult because the water, once you cut the stem, you've got about 15 to 20 seconds before it starts to close up and will stop absorbing water. So I've got my vase and it's full of water, and I'm going to just start with my tape grid. And my tape grid goes 1, 2, and then turn it. And I'm sorry, I don't think you can see it that well, and I can't tilt it because of the water.
Oh,
but
no,
you turn it. It's kind of like a tic-tac-toe.
Yeah.
1, 2. So I created a checkerboard. And that's all. I used to go around, but you don't need to do that. And if you just leave it like this, when you want to change the water, you can just pick up the tape and pull the whole bouquet up. So
That's
start
really
with that.
awesome.
Yeah, no, it's great. And then I use my hydrangea. Now, if you didn't have the tape grid, binding the hydrangea together is going to give you a nice sturdy base, so you don't have to worry too much. But I like things to be extra secure. So I'm starting by pulling off all the leaves on my hydrangea. These are one of these flowers that I get all the time. How do you get your hydrangea to stay alive? Mostly it's because I pull off all of the leaves and the flower doesn't have to compete any longer with the water going to the head. So.
Oh, that's an awesome tip. I had no idea.
Yeah, and And often if your hydrangea flops, if you give it a really good cut, it will come back to life. One thing you can also do is you always want to start with really fresh products. So if you feel the top and it gives kind of a little bounce, like your nose, you know it's good. If you touch it and it kind of collides in on itself, it's old and you don't want to buy it.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, it's all about the feel and the touch.
So when you're at the grocery store, Ashley, do you go around just like patting the top of the flowers?
Yeah, so I touch them and then I turn them upside down and shake them. Because if you turn it upside down and shake it and things start falling off, it's not good. The other thing, well, I'll show you in a second, but I also peel down the plastic to see if around the vine point there's any kind of slimy or mold, and because that's going to tell you your flowers are old. So I have my hydrangea arranged here in my hand, and I'm going to take my piece of twine. This is a special wire-coated twine, which makes it really easy, because instead of having to tie a knot, I can just twist it. Can you see that?
Yeah.
Twist, twist, twist. So like that. I cut that, and then I'm going to cut this, and I know right about there.
So now, how did you know what height you wanted the hydrangeas to be?
I work with this size all the time, but what you can do is you can measure it. So you want your stems to be as long as possible while still fitting in the vase. So you can measure it just like that. And then for me, because you like a nice long cut on that so they can absorb as much water as possible. So there, now we're done.
Honestly, if I received a bouquet that looked like that, I'd be perfectly happy.
Okay, so the next thing I do is I work with my kind of thin greenery or any small stems. This is the clematis that I cut off of this plant. So I just already put it in water for the sake of time. But it's one of my very favorite foliages to use. And I can plant that in my garden now. And it will come back year after year. So I'm just going to start by fitting it in between the hydrangea. And again, I put this in now as opposed to other things because this stem is pretty delicate and small. And if I wait until my vase is already completely crammed with flowers, it's going to be really hard to get it in. And I'm probably going to skip it just to save time.
Got it. Ashley, we have a question from one of our viewers.
Great.
Ken asked if that was Scotch tape or floral tape. I believe you said it was floral tape. Do you mind holding it up again and showing us where we might get it from?
Absolutely. It's Oasis floral tape, and you can order it on Amazon, or better, go to your local florist and support them. I use the 1/2 inch thick. There's a 1/4 inch thick, but I prefer the 1/2 inch because it's going to stay in place better.
Great. Thank you so much.
You don't need to make quite so many. So this pretty clematis has a bloom on it. So going in right there. So you see it kind of already got that wild feeling to it. So my next thing I usually build with are my roses. And I'm going a little fast because I know we don't have too much time.
We have 15 more minutes. You're more than halfway done, I think.
No, I am more is more is more. So I'm going to take off all the leaves below the water line. Just pull them off. And I'm just going to start fitting them in. And this design is going to be somewhere in between compact and wild and free. So it's what I like to call round and bouncy. So it's not super tight, but it still does have a bit of that traditional shape.
This is so pretty.
You know, part of what makes a nice bouquet is the color choice. And how I chose this palette today was when I went into Trader Joe's, in this case, I saw the peonies and I said, well, I have to use the peonies. So then I built the rest of the bouquet around it. It can be really tempting. The sunflowers were gorgeous too, but this bouquet wouldn't look exactly the same with big yellow sunflowers stuck in it.
Sure.
All right.
Actually, while you're fitting those, I want to ask you another question.
Sure.
I noticed with your hydrangeas that you trimmed around the sides of the stem as well.
Mm-hmm.
And you said that was to get maximum amount of water?
Yeah.
Got it.
So If you're using something like scissors, you can just give it a really long angle cut with your scissors. It'll take a little more time, but if you give it that cut, you're gonna have better luck again.
Got it. Okay. And we have another question from a viewer.
Okay.
The vase is getting a lot of attention, and one of our attendees wants to know what size is it, the width and height, if you happen to know.
I know. This is my favorite vase. It is a 6x6 glass vase, white glass, and I like the white glass because while you can use clear glass, it tends to get a little bit dirty, which is great because it reminds you to change your water. But if it's a gift for somebody, you don't necessarily want to obligate them to changing the water. So if you have an opaque vase, the flowers, even if the water is dirty underneath, they're gonna look beautiful on top.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And
so I just
question from a viewer before you tell us about this white flower, are those mini roses that you used?
Yes, when I went, there weren't any nice large roses. Normally I would use a regular standard size rose, but there weren't any that looked good. So these very pretty little spray roses will make do.
Got it. Okay.
I'm adding in my peonies, which is kind of the next biggest flower. All right.
And you said more is more. There's no such thing as too much, it seems. This is absolutely stunning.
I mean, I like a lot of texture. I think it's what gives it that elevated look. And these are all flowers that and foliage that I found at the grocery store. You can find them at all, not all of the grocery stores, but most of them. And so now I'm adding in hypericum, which the play on textures, this is kind of a sleek, smooth texture as opposed to this fluffy one. And the contrast really makes it look beautiful.
That's
and I don't know what this front looks like. I hope it looks good.
It looks fantastic.
Okay. I'm not spinning and turning today.
I love it. We have another viewer asking, should the stems touch the bottom of the vase?
If you can get them to, that's a great idea. And the reason for this is because your flowers are thirsty, especially if you're packing them as full as I am in this vase. So if somebody doesn't add water or change water, if the stems go all the way down, they are going to be able to keep drinking. Whereas opposed to if the stem just stopped, right at the top of the vase and the rest of the water went down, well, your flower's going to die.
Sure, sure. Speaking of flower bouquet maintenance, do you really have to cut the stems every day?
I don't. I almost never recut the stems, but what I will do is every 3 days or 4 days, I will change the whole water out. And I can show you maybe how I do it right now. So I would pick up the tape, and again, I only have 8 little intersections of tape here. 1, 2, 3. But you can pick up your whole, let me pull it apart, bouquet, just like this. And if you have another vase, you just plop it right in the other vase. And that is how I really recommend changing the water, because if you try to turn it upside down and cut all those stems, you're probably going to lose a couple flowers along the way. So you may end up doing more harm than good with that one.
That makes sense. So how long, we've got to have realistic expectations. How long should one anticipate a bouquet lasting?
I tell my customers 3 to 5 days, and that's because I want to manage expectations. I have people call me and say, my bouquet lasted 2 weeks. Makes me a little nervous because then they expect the bouquet to last for 2 weeks every time. So I say 3 to 5 days.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Totally fair. Beautiful.
So again,
lasts forever.
Yeah, I mean, part of it also is the style. So if you work in a compact style like this, the flowers are going to support each other. Whereas if you have them kind of loose and airy, what often happens is the head gets very heavy and will break and fall. So the flower is actually still alive, but it's just it's kind of given up. So if they're supported in here, it's going to stay in place a lot longer.
Got it. So Ashley, one of the questions that I had for you that's being echoed throughout our viewers right now is, what on earth is that stuff in the flower packet, and does it really work?
Okay, so they call this stuff, which came with every single one of my bunches, they call it flower food. But what it really is an antibacterial kind of thing. I don't personally use it. I think that they give it to a lot of people because if there are leaves in the water, that creates a lot of bacteria. So you will want to use this. However, you do need to make sure to use it in the right ratio. If you use it in the wrong ratio, what you end up doing is feeding the bacteria instead of killing it. So just if you use it, be sure to follow the directions on how much per, the water to floral food ratio.
Oh, got it. There are so many, freshwater hacks like sugar, pennies, seltzer water, whatever the case may be. Do any of those work as well? Or
I believe if you believe it, it works. So I'm like a big person, like the power of the mind. If you think it works and if you believe it's going to work, it'll probably work for you. If you don't think it's going to work, it's not going to work. I don't use any of them. I just try to really get fresh flowers and then go from there.
Gotcha.
So, and I'm just adding in my little ranunculus, which are delicate and kind of float on top.
Ashley, I think I know the answer to this one, but we have a viewer asking, are you utilizing all of the tape sections, or is everything going into the center of your? I
utilize all the tape sections. So the hydrangea goes right down into the middle, but the other ones, on the edge, especially like if I'll have a shorter stem and it's going to fit around the edge, they naturally go up to an angle. So if you have the tape section, it kind of holds it down and holds it in place.
Got it.
So I have one of my last favorite grocery store finds that I add into my bouquet. So I'll actually buy the orchid plant and use the orchids either by the stem or by the bloom. And the way I do that is I just cut it off and I use a little water tube, which you can get at any florist, and they're reusable. So if you will just wash them, you can use them more than once. And then I just kind of add them in for a more little butterfly effect.
Now, Ashley, I think you mentioned at the start that you purchased around somewhere between, you said 7 or 11 bouquets to help us today, but that you could do this in as little as 3. And yeah, even when you only had 3 variants in there, it looks really beautiful. Can you tell us how much one would expect to spend if they're buying 3 to 4 bunches for this?
Yeah, so I took my receipt and I was kind of curious. So if you were just to buy the hydrangea, the roses, and the peonies, which are the more expensive, you're going to spend about $35 on it. If you buy all of this other stuff, you're going to spend quite a bit more, but it will still be less than if you bought it from a traditional florist.
Got it.
Which is nice,
Yes, that's really reasonable.
I think so. You have to do what makes sense for you and for your budget, but it's also a fun activity and it's very therapeutic. So I think it's money well spent. And add in a little bit of the Veronica.
And Ashley, you continue to pull the leaves off of any part that's going to touch the water, right?
Yes, and if you notice, I cut it right before it goes in every single time. Yes. So that's a really important step. I think a lot of times when people have trouble with the water, it's because they're not cutting them right before they go in the water. You can't cut it and then 20 minutes later put it in. That's not going to work.
I will never forget your 15-second window.
One thing also that I wanted to mention that I didn't think of, an important step for when you get the flowers home and before you start to design with them is what we call processing. So you want to cut their ends and put them in an extra bucket just to absorb the water. So they have time to kind of rest and acclimate before you start designing with them. So I think that's a really important step that we don't often talk about. I forgot my carnations.
Ooh. Ashley,
go ahead.
If you don't have floral tape, will Scotch tape work or any other type of tape?
No, Scotch tape won't work. It'll drive you crazy. You'll get it all on place, and then as soon as I've tried it, as soon as you go to put your flowers in, it collapses in on itself. If you really wanted a tape but didn't have access to floral, you could try using the electric tape. You know, that kind of like soft electric tape that people use. That will work better than any other tape. Just go to your local florist or go on Amazon and get a tape, and you'll be very happy. It'll last forever too.
Oh yeah, it looks that way. We have about 5 minutes left. One of your bouquets that you make at the atelier is your magic bouquet, which is so beautiful. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so this January I started, I've been really interested in the energetic properties of flowers. So each month I actually design a bouquet specific to the energy of that month. So I brainstorm like, okay, what are the feelings of April? What are the feelings of May? And then I choose flowers that have that kind of energetic essence to them and then put them all in a bouquet. So if my clients are kind of feeling like they need a little energy or they need a little luck, they can order one of those bouquets. And I've had some very good feedback, people receiving the bouquets and then being, hey, I was at the grocery store and I got my COVID shot. So good things do happen. Well, this has been a pleasure. Are there any more questions?
Let's see. One viewer says, I heard you should put tulips in an ice bath before designing with them. Is that true?
Again, I think if you believe it, it could work. I certainly haven't done it, but I may find myself trying if my tulips are not cooperating one time. I mean, why not? I know people do that with hydrangea. Again, for me, I need to be quick and I need to be efficient. So I won't necessarily have time to give my flowers baths before I use them. But if it's fun and you enjoy it, sure, ice those tulips.
Amazing. And one last question, you know, a lot of people are moving to drying out their flowers. That's something you could do with this bunch. And if so, when's the right moment to take them out of water?
Yeah, absolutely. So actually, if you want to dry your flowers, I recommend leaving them just in the vase as they are and letting them suck up all the water and dry that way. Because when you dry your flowers, a lot of times, if you can hang them upside down to keep their head straight, or if you leave them like this, they're already all supported. So I would do that. There's a difference between drying and pressing. If you want to press your flowers, I would say you want to do that before they start to fall apart because they need to have those bonds, or you're just going to have a whole bunch of petals. And in that case, you're going to want to do that between dry absorbent paper.
Gotcha. Ashley, you have to hold up this beautiful bouquet.
There you go.
So gorgeous.
I want to see the front. I have to admit, I ignored the back because I knew you guys could only see the front. So I think the back is so pretty.
The back is great.
You know.
Last question from our viewer before wrapping up with you, but is there a best day of the week to buy grocery store flowers? It sounds like once you build the relationship with your florist, they'll give you the inside track, but is it like Tuesday?
Well, usually I would say Monday. There's usually 2 shipments. So there's a Sunday night shipment, so the flowers go out on Monday. And then there's a Wednesday night shipment, so the flowers for the weekend go out on Thursday. So Monday morning and Thursday morning, if you don't know your people, are probably going to be your best times. Sometimes what happens is they end up getting holed up in the back. So again, if you, and they're not going to put those out until the other flowers are sold. So if you build that relationship, if those new fresh flowers are in the back, you can ask, hey, did anything fresh come in? And again, the freshness of your flowers is going to determine how long the overall arrangement lasts.
Amazing. This is so awesome. I cannot thank you enough for your time today. I feel like I have to go and I mean, it's not going to get my mom in time for Mother's Day, but if I don't do this, like I've done a disservice. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you so much for having me. It was a pleasure. And if anybody has any questions, they can always DM me on Instagram at Atelier Ashley Flowers, or I'm sure they could reach out to you guys.
Absolutely. No, you are so amazing on Instagram. So everyone should absolutely follow you. And I'm so glad to hear they can DM you questions as well. Although you answered several here and this will live on our internet. So I hope everyone took away so much from it. Thank you everyone who tuned in for watching Ashley Greer give a floral demo. We're so grateful. I hope that you enjoyed the discussion. Next up,